Good morning and welcome to our 12th annual educational event for landlords. I am Chris German from the Apartment Dealer, and over the next 90 minutes or so, myself and the panel of speakers that we've assembled for you are going to address the most pressing issues when it comes to owning investment real estate, and more specifically, the ownership and management of multifamily properties. How will COVID shaped multifamily investments and the real estate market going forward?
There's lots of reason to be concerned with regulation, with rent control, with the moratoriums, with whatever else they might come up with next.
Well, I agree with a lot of what Steve said. I have slight disagreements with some of what he said. For example, I believe that what came out of COVID was that people started working virtually. And I think that people will continue to do that. A lot of people will continue to do that.
With COVID, we got this new term called essential worker. So if your tenants were essential workers, it was more likely that your rent showed up. And if they were not essential workers, you were more likely to miss a rent payment.
Most of us were completely surprised by the public's reaction to the coronavirus. 2019 showed a decline in the price increases despite the best set of charts ever for that to occur, and that didn't occur. And so about March of 2020, when the coronavirus hit, there was a lot of uncertainty what was going to happen. Well, what happened was two urgent groups did their thing. 50% of the listings disappeared from the MLS. You're not touring my house, so I'm not going to get sick.
Because the government keeps on intervening with the natural process of trying to make the landing soft. But what I think is happening though is with some of the mechanisms they're using to create a soft landing is actually going to create a harder landing down the road.
Some of what we're seeing now with the tremendous spending, the consequence of that is economic, it is a surety, there is no doubt about it. It is exactly what then happened in the late 60s and through the 70s, where you had tremendous stagnation and inflation, which they named stagflation.
There's a shortage of supply of inventory of rentals in the marketplace. And with inflation rising, it is going to be important to raise those rents.
That's how inflation happens. This is exactly what happened following President Johnson's war on poverty.
You can't just give a 60-day notice anymore.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No,
and that's the reality.
You cannot give a 60-day notice. Under SB 91, do we see California rent control going away or sticking around, and do we see it becoming more stringent? As far as it going away, I have two words: heck no. As far as it becoming more stringent, absolutely. What I anticipate seeing is all of this stuff is going to come together. I'm seeing the increase in habitability claims, I'm seeing the increase in fair housing claims, I'm seeing an increase in general litigation against landlords.
They just found that the growth in rents this year, if it keeps pace, will nationwide, is going to equate to about 9.1%, and that'll be the biggest gains in rent in not just the last decade, in the century. This year.
Wow. Okay.
So you have things like that.
I don't know if this is quite a bubble.
Do lower rates make everything else price up? That's an absolute yes, 100%. Properties, stock market, everything reflects on lower rates. So this correction that we're going to be seeing in the stock market, I believe, is going to cause a lot of volatility.
This is, as from an investment perspective, this is what it is. And I know some people who will see this are not part of Chris German's excellent apartment owning audience. Some of them are not apartment owners. Figure out a way to buy an apartment. This is the way to do it. This is, we live in a country where total strangers will buy real estate for you, and those strangers are called tenants.
If multifamily was an apartment building, I would venture to say we're in the 13th inning. I just can't tell you, is it going to be a 14 inning game or a 15 inning game? All I know is a lot of this stuff does not make sense. And when tenants are spending 55% or more of their discretionary income on rent, at what point do you does the straw break the camel's back? And I just don't see cap rates being compressed. And so I think it's somewhat of a bubble.
So you think it's a bubble?
Eliminate step up in basis or increase capital gains tax. And we'll just roundtable it. Do you believe you're going to see at least one of the three? Mr. Hall, you're the accountant in the room. Are we going to see one of the three in the next 2 years?
So you got a room full of 200 people, one guy goes to the restroom, that's the guy that pays 40% of the tab. So if you're going to raise taxes, you got to raise it on him, right?
Yes, and at the same time, when you raise taxes on the wealthy and on companies, when you increase corporate income tax,
So if we've seen tremendous inflation, okay, but it's only been the rich who get to reinvest in these assets, okay, not necessarily GDP. So our core inflation hasn't moved. But what happens now when the public receives this extra money? That is a core inflation that we haven't seen possibly ever. So the question is, the teeter-totter, how do you balance this without getting into a hyperinflation situation?
and you're 100% right, Gil. It's been in real estate and stocks. What happens when it moves to consumer products? And you're already seeing it in.
What can we do to protect our real estate investments in the current climate? Mr. Brennan, what can we do to protect our real estate investments in the current climate?
I think we are coming upon, for lack of a better word right now, shaky times, and employment trends are shifting, housing trends are shifting, and these are the reason I say this is these are the reasons given for some of the legislation that's coming out. There's a lot of shifts going on, and I think as a landlord, the best thing you could do right now is stay on top of the shifts, stay ahead of the curve, and do that through your documents.